Hello, well, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the weekly patch notes brought to you by X2Skip podcast, The Boys. I will be your host today, Kid Kojo. Tommy cannot be here with us this week, but hopefully he'll be here with us next week. But with me, as always, is Maxwell. What's up?
Howdy.
Cool. So, as usual, if you want to help us out, hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment to engage with us about these topics if you are so inclined to do so. It will really help us along the way. And before we get started, Maxwell, any admin or announcement?
Just one. And it has to be about a trailer I saw today. Maybe you saw the trailer, but you know Sony's China Hero project?
Isn't it that I forgot the name of that game? It's something
It's
something. What does it tell me?
a Whisper of Four Chini Wei.
Yes, Jinyu Wei, that's the one. I saw it just before recording, but I didn't watch it because I saw it and I'm like, is this another one of PlayStation's China Hero thing, or is this another game from the East? And I'm like, I'll see it later. Anyway, yeah, you said
Yeah,
sorry.
it was. So I just wanted to make mention of it. It looks pretty dope. But then looking at it, it looks a lot like Wukong, a lot like Phantom Blade, and there's also one or two other Chinese games, and it had me thinking one of two things. A, are we beginning to create a subgenre or a genre of categories of Chinese games? When you get a Chinese game, you know what it's going to be like? Or B, is there a lack of originality in China with these games? Because it had me thinking, like, when will people tire out of these type of games? And I also realized that every time these Chinese games look very good. They look like fun type of games to play that I would enjoy playing, but there's not enough originality amongst them. So I would imagine one would tire from playing the same type of games. Like, have you seen very distinct or different type of games from Chinese developers? Nah, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
No.
So it just had me thinking about that. Of, are we going to get burnout from Chinese type of games, or are they going to continue doing big? I would imagine if there's just one game coming out each year, then maybe that becomes like a subcategory. People are like, oh yeah, when's that big Chinese adventure type of game based on some type of Chinese mythology or something going to be coming out or something like that? But yeah, it genuinely looks good, but I imagine it might be a little bit boring. But yeah, that's just my random thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, I literally saw it on PlayStation's YouTube channel, and I'm like, oh, it's another one of these games. Not that it's a bad thing, but I'm just like, man, we're getting a lot of these, so I didn't really bother watching it.
Yep,
But
like that. You already know what it is before you've even seen it.
yeah, but maybe I'll just give it a quick look. Well, not maybe I'll watch it. We'll see. How long is the trailer?
I believe about 4 minutes or 4 to 7 minutes.
Did it show like gameplay or was it like CG?
It was largely CG. They showed glimpses of gameplay, but then those glimpses are without UI, so might be those type of staged gameplay.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it a quick look. But yeah, thanks for that. Okay. Now let's move on to the news. Maxwell, what has been happening in it?
All right, not much really. I would say the biggest thing would be from last week, well, since we didn't cover the patch notes, would be Ubisoft, but that has developed and you have a number to say on that, so I'll leave that to you, and anything you don't say I might add. That's assuming you don't say any of the things I'm aware of, but I think you'll cover it completely. So on the smaller side of stuff, we start off talking about Valve. they are facing a lawsuit from the UK worth almost $900 million, an anti-competitive lawsuit. Heard about that?
No, actually, I have not.
So the grounds of this lawsuit are your type of scratch your head lawsuit of this doesn't make sense as a gamer. So it makes me think that the person who pushed this ahead doesn't really game or understand, because it's one of those class action lawsuits of done on behalf of a group of people. So basically, the lawsuit alleges that Valve engages in anti-competitive behavior by imposing conditions on developers, preventing them from selling earlier or cheaper versions elsewhere. And as a gamer, you're like, huh? But you've got Epic Game Store, you've got PlayStation, you've got Xbox, you've got the Switch. But I guess staying on PC, you would know better than me. Other than the Epic Game Store, what other stores are there? Because I thought there was one more. There's Steam, Epic, and one more, isn't there?
GOG, to my knowledge.
And then didn't we also have Microsoft until they decided to bring their thing to Steam? The whole Game Pass.
Is Game Pass on Steam?
No, actually, no, you're right. It's not on Steam. I'm confusing my story. There's rumors that it will be coming to Steam. So
No,
yeah,
Microsoft
you also
has
have
their own store with.
yeah. So there you go. You also have the Game Pass store. So I don't understand that part. And then the other claim is that Valve requires players to purchase updates for Steam games on Steam, locking in players on that platform, where it's just like, again, huh? Because if I buy a game on Steam, as a gamer logic, how am I going to buy DLC elsewhere? Like, that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I remember someone was a few years ago. I forgot what the topic was, but someone was making a video about something, but it had to do with the online stores, Epic and Steam. And I think he was talking about how to make the Epic Game Store better or something like. I can't remember what it was, but he did bring up the fact that we should be able to have DLCs. If you buy a game on one platform, you should be able to buy the DLCs on another platform. And I was sitting there and I was like, I don't like to say things like this, but that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard of in my entire life.
Yeah, I also saw, when I saw it, I'm like, that's stupid. So that's like, oh, if I buy my game on PlayStation, I should be able to buy the DLC on Xbox and continue playing that. Like, huh? So that's a weird thing. And with this lawsuit, previously, it was brought up previously, but it didn't go further. And now the courts in the UK say it can go ahead. So we'll see how that goes, and if it even. Oh yes, and another part about this was the whole how Valve are charging 30% for using their platform from developers, where again, PlayStation charges 30%, Xbox charges 30%. If I'm correct, 30% is the industry standard. I understand Epic charges lower to try and attract developers, but as the leader in the area, why would you lower your thing? So for me, I do think 30% is a lot, but it's the industry standard. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just gonna say I remember seeing, you know me and Twitter, I'm trying to stay off of that place, horrible place. But I remember seeing some developers say that, you know, Epic making games free on their platform only makes people want to go buy it. Okay, and then it was just a back and forth between Tim Sweeney and then someone else, and then the creator of Max Payne, the developers of Max Payne and Control, and Alan Wake came out, and because Alan Wake had an exclusive deal with Epic, so only Alan Wake 2 is on Epic. I mean, Alan Wake 2 is only on Epic. I don't think it's on Steam. and they came out and they defended Steam, and it was just a whole back and forth thing. And I was just like, okay, cool, I'm not really interested. But maybe it has something to do with this lawsuit. Maybe. Because
Well,
yeah, if you look online, one last thing, if you look online on YouTube, and a lot of content creators have spoken about this, they will tell you that Steam is a monopoly, but it's the only good monopoly in the world. That's what they'll tell you. They'll
yeah,
say that Steam is amazing, Steam is brilliant, Steam is, which
because,
I do game on PC. It is pretty good. Not gonna lie.
like it's definitely a monopoly, and monopolies aren't a good thing. You want competition, but Steam is one of those rare cases of becoming a monopoly out of actually from building goodwill from consumers, as opposed to, yeah, we killed the competition, we bought them out, or we did very anti-competitive stuff, and now we're the only people standing, or we're so big that nobody can dream to compete against us. So there's that, and we'll see how that develops over time. With these court cases, things they'll take months to years before being fully resolved. Then, moving on to the next story, you remember Mighty Number 9?
Of course. Eiji Inofune's game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Kickstarter
so speaking of Inafune, his studio, Comcept, has
game. That's the
officially
one.
been dissolved.
Oh man. That sucks.
Yeah, but it seems like this was in a long time making, because he had subsidiaries for the company which also got dissolved in a couple of years earlier or a year earlier. I don't recall which of the two. And now this is the final nail in the coffin, as the studio has just been struggling to do anything, which is ironic, I say, because what do you call it? Mega Man is coming back, and his Mighty Number 9 didn't work out too well. So when I saw the story, it had me wondering, like, I wonder if he's working on the new Mega Man. And I went and looked online, researched it, and nah, he has nothing to do with it. Has had nothing to do with it since leaving Capcom. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that gotta sting a little, where you leave a company, you decide, okay, these guys haven't been doing Mega Man. I'm going to do a version of Mega Man, because obviously legally I can't do Mega Man. And then your version just did not take off, and then they are like, hey, let's do Mega Man. We haven't done Mega Man for a while, and they did it without you. Yeah.
It's it sucks because I actually remember, because I think I had just finished high school. I could be wrong, but it was like 2013 where he had the whole video of him, it was his Kickstarter video where he was like talking about he was like walking around Tokyo or wherever in Japan, and he was talking about his past, and he was talking about his future and the studio concept, and then he was drawing the lead character for Mighty Number 9, and he was like, let's make this project together, support us on Kickstarter. Like, it looked like it was, whatever. And then the game came out, and we all know how that went. And
Oh,
yeah, it was
nah,
not good.
I was seeing that his
Uh,
last project was in 2016, Recall for Xbox, and
oh
after
yeah, was that
Recall,
them?
I didn't even know he was responsible for Recall.
Is that Comcept?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And in 2022, he was involved in some Japanese NFT stuff.
Of course it was.
Yeah. It's like every time you hear the story of somebody going down and they primarily do online stuff, NFTs always find their way into the stories. Like, if somebody is involved in NFTs, that's a red flag of okay, this person's not doing so well.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then moving on to the next story, potentially the last story. There's another minor story I'll mention, but it's just in passing, because this has just started off and hasn't really developed into anything. But my last major story is basically talking about a Japanese indie dev uh, turned to Twitter. An indie dev finished creating a game, right? And the developer thought the end credit of his game was too short. So he turned to Twitter saying to people, whoever likes this tweet, all of this was done in Japanese. It was like, the 100 people or so who likes this tweet their names will be added to the credit of this game because I feel like this game's credit is too short. Guess how many people ended up liking the tweet?
20K.
Good guess. 60K.
Oh, good luck to him.
Yeah, no. So staying true to his word, he decided to add all 60K instead of one of those, I'll add the first 100 or whatever. And apparently it took him 300 hours to add all 60,000 names to the end credit.
Damn it, I wish I knew about this beforehand.
Because apparently all of this was done on January 25th.
Yeah, well, I don't troll around Twitter often, so...
I mean, it's also Japanese Twitter, so... if you're not getting Japanese tweets, you probably wouldn't have come across.
That is very true.
Yeah. Then the last mention I have is just in passing about, you remember how EA has sold itself to a bunch of individuals who have a coalition or whatever you want to call it of owning EA?
Yes.
And this is supposed to be finalized by next year. Well, apparently House Democrats have gotten together to ask the FTC to further scrutinize the sale to make sure that there aren't giant reshufflings or job changes and things like that. So they've just sent a letter to the FTC. I don't know if the FTC will take action after this letter or if it will even impact anything, but it's something to take note of going forward. Plus, seeing how lacking of fangs the FTC had with the whole Microsoft Activision sale, probably might be a similar thing here with EA, but we'll see. I'm assuming the dislike is from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia having part ownership. But these guys have part ownership in a number of stuff, and they've been doing these big moves. Like, they've got part ownership in Nintendo, right?
Really? That is interesting. I did not know that.
Indeed, they do. A minority ownership, but it's there. And according to some people, they think this is the reason why, or part of the reason why, Nintendo of lately has more or less sold out or become scummier, because they're answering to shareholders as opposed to thinking about the gamers. And obviously the other reason is because the CEO and stuff like that are not gamers, they're just number guys. But yeah, that's a whole other topic. Yeah, that's the only thing I had, and that's pretty much it for the news. So Ubisoft, regale us, Kojo.
Yeah, so Ubisoft have had a pretty big month, not a good one. So it all started when they announced that they were canceling 6 projects. One of those being the long in trouble Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake. That one was, it was announced at the thing in the Ubisoft Forward. The trailer came, which was years ago. I remember watching it with my brother. I think it was like 2020 COVID or 2021 of the two. Trailer came out, people did not like it because they said it looked bad. They delayed it, they went and worked on it. There were some leaks, people hated the leaks, they were working on it, they said, oh, we're still working on it, blah blah blah. And then it finally came out that nope, it's been cancelled along with 5 other projects which we don't know about. And they've delayed, I think, 7 games, and one of those is said to be the long rumored but seems to exist, but it's still a rumor, but it still seems to exist, which is the Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake, which a lot of people are looking forward to, because a lot of people will tell you that, Black Flag is one of the best games Ubisoft has ever put out. Yeah. And so they only named, as I just said, they only named the Sands of Time remake. They haven't given any specifications or specifics about that. The details. They're closing down Ubisoft Stockholm, which helped with Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, and they're also closing the mobile studio Ubisoft Halifax, and they're restructuring the offices in Abu Dhabi, the Ubisoft offices in Abu Dhabi, the Trials, that motorbike game Trials, the 2D motorbike game, that studio Red Links, they're doing reshuffling there, and Massive, who make The Division, also doing some restructuring there. Ubisoft's chief financial officer Frederick Duguay, one of the two, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, he just said that Ubisoft went through their projects and they said, look, they're looking at the current climate, which they say is consistently more selective, which I think it means that gamers now know what they want, and if they don't like what they see, they're not going to buy it. And so Ubisoft is like, okay, we need to make games that they want, or if we just make random games, it's going to be to our detriment. And they're saying that what's it called? They are restructuring things to be under their creative houses. So like I think it was end of last year, or towards the end of last year, we announced that they announced that they were doing this whole creative houses thing, where a number of creative houses under Ubisoft to be made, and then the IPs will be under those creative houses. Is weird, but anyway. So there are 5 creative houses to my knowledge, and so Creative House 1 will be in charge of. Oh yes, so the first creative house is called Vantage Studios, which will encompass 3 Ubisoft brands, which is Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. So those are Ubisoft's big 3. Like, those are the ones that is making them money right now, and the most money, let me say, right now. So that's under the first creative house. The second creative house is dedicated to shooters like The Division, Ghost Recon, and Splinter Cell. I don't know why they put Splinter Cell there, like they still want to do something with Splinter Cell. Creative House 3 will focus on live experiences like For Honor, The Crew, Riders Republic, Brawlhalla, and Skull and Bones. Shout out Skull and Bones to the 2 people who are still playing. Creative House 4 will feature narrative-driven and fantasy games like Anno, Might and Magic, Rayman, Prince of Persia, and of course, Maxwell, Beyond Good and Evil, baby. It still exists, Maxwell, in your face. Anyway.
But I made mention to you several weeks ago that supposedly devs claim they're still working on it, and you're like, you don't believe it.
No, it's not that I don't believe it. Is that I do believe there's work being done on it, but if it's productive work, that's where I'm. If there's work that's actually, actually being, what's the word I'm looking for? If it's productive work, if that makes sense. If they're not going round and round in circles. But anyway. And finally, the last creative house will be focused on family and casual gaming like Just Dance, Uno, Hasbro games, Idle Miner Tycoon, Ketchup, Hungry Shark, and Invincible Guardian of the Globe. Or Guarding the Globe, sorry. Invincible Guarding the Globe. Now, as I was reading this list of games, Maxwell, I noticed there's a game franchise missing. I threw a lot of games at you, so I'm not expecting you to pay attention. But did you catch a game series that was missing that I didn't say?
Who owns Rayman?
That's Ubisoft.
Rayman?
No, I said Rayman. It's under Creative House 4.
Then no, I didn't catch.
I don't think I said Watch Dogs.
Ah.
Because there are a lot of, Paul Tassi, I think, he said, sorry, Potasi, I think, came out and said, hey man, for my sources, Watch Dogs looks like it's dead, which is a shame. But anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, I thought it died after that failed attempt at, was that a third Watchdog game? Yeah, the
Legion,
one
yeah.
which had the whole controversy. Yeah, that's the one. 'Cause that was such
Like,
a
look,
shit show, I think.
yeah, I appreciate them for trying to do, like, you know me, I always appreciate people who swing for the fences. And they try to do something creative and unique that I don't think we've seen before. But I guess it just
I
didn't.
think
In theory,
the
dope. In practice, eh.
I think the reason why Watchdog is dead is because what they promised was the moon, and what they delivered was some what pogo. It was a pogo stick. Wasn't a rocket ship. Wasn't even a plane. It was a fucking pogo stick where you barely get off the ground. And I think they tried to deliver. They were like, okay, if we can't reach the moon, let's at least reach the stars or reach the sky or something. But I imagine after they made the two Watchdogs, the sequel and then the Legion thing, they realized, okay, what we promised the players is just simply unattainable, and we'll never be able to achieve that. And these guys will always be comparing to that demo, and we can't achieve that demo. So let's just stop trying to even reach it because we just simply can't. Which
Yeah, that makes
leads me
sense.
to ask you, how
Mhm.
often does Rainbow Six come out? Because I'm beginning
Um,
to come up with a theory on the spot.
there hasn't been a new Rainbow Six game since 2015 with Siege.
So I think that's Ubisoft's problem. Like you mentioned, their big franchises are Rainbow Six, Far Cry, and Assassin's Creed. And I think the problem with Ubisoft is they don't have a $1 billion selling franchise that comes out regularly enough for them. Assassin's Creed might have been that, but then the problem with Assassin's Creed, the type of game it is, it needs so much creativity, care, and work that you can't be releasing that annually. And they realized that to their own detriment when they started trying to have that 2 year cycle or whatnot. But the whole annual release bites you in the ass. Ask Activision, where they've had to have 3 different studios to rotate Call of Duty on. But my theory is that big studios nowadays, if they want to stay afloat, they need to have that $1 billion franchise. EA has FIFA. Activision has Call of Duty. And right now I can't pull up other studios out of my ass, but I'm sure other Bethesda has their rotational of Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and there should have been one more. But yeah, I feel big studios from old are struggling nowadays because they don't have that killer franchise they can rely on of this is always going to make us money as our other experiments flop. Because I look at things as, look how ADOS died, look at how Square struggles, look at how Capcom as well themselves were struggling before they stabilized the ship. And when Capcom was struggling, if you notice, they didn't have a regular games coming out. Now they're more stable with regular games. Where we're seeing Resident Evil is more regular. Previously, it was not. I mean, fucking hell, we're on RE9 for crying out loud. And then they're bringing out Onimusha. They still do Devil May Cry here and there. But I feel like you need to have your regular franchise. Your franchise is where you know there's a love for this game, and we can confidently and solidly say it's going to make somewhere around this region. And we have a pattern of releasing this. And so we know it's not going to, one game's not going to be 7 years, another game's not going to be 10 years, then the next one's not going to be 3 years. We know confidently that this game will be coming out every X amount of years. Bethesda, ever since getting acquired by Microsoft, if you've noticed, they've gotten a lot more relaxed on their releases. Relaxed to the point that it's lazy. prior the Microsoft purchase, they were on the ball of we need to be releasing games. And I believe Todd Howard or somebody from Bethesda, who's the dude what's his name, who retired about a year or two ago? Pete
The
Hines?
senior vice president, Pete Hines. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe him or Howard made mention about how before the acquisition, they would have to be churning out games more regularly to stay afloat. But after being acquired by Microsoft, it's not as immediate. So I think in today's day and age of gaming, you need to have that multi-million-dollar franchise that is going to be the backbone of your company, that you know you can release at a regular interval, that is going to be selling well for you. And in the meanwhile, you can try and discover new IP, but you need that backbone. And companies who don't have that backbone are the ones who are struggling. Look at Sony. Sony themselves, as much as they make these big games, the costs of their games are ridiculous, and they don't themselves know for sure if a game's going to be a hit. Hence why under what the flip was the dude's name who recently, that's the one, stepped down. He was pivoting for online, live, whatever games. And I don't blame him, because there's money to be made in the online space. Just how they were handling it was the wrong way. And it was always a matter of, when is Sony finally going to start cashing in this area? I don't think live service is the answer. I do think online is an area they need to rely on. And hell, look at Xbox with how Microsoft, the main company, is fine-tuning and slimming down their projects and things like that, and trying to control what projects they can release, where even Microsoft's like, yo, you guys are not making us enough money. Something's got to give. So I'm thinking gaming is getting very expensive nowadays, and it's getting a lot more difficult. And if you don't have that multi-million-dollar franchise, you're going to be struggling. But that's my theory and assessment looking at what's going on with Ubisoft.
No, that makes complete sense. 100%. Yeah. I cannot argue with that one. So yeah, that was what Ubisoft was doing earlier this month. Now, recently, Ubisoft are now doing some cost reduction initiative at its Paris headquarters, or inside its Paris headquarters. So they have proposed the loss of 200 jobs within the French capital, where it currently employs 1,100 people. The process will be organized under the Voluntary Rupture Conventionnel Collective, or RCC process, where the staff can agree to form a collective voluntary mutual termination agreement. Does that make sense to you?
To me, it sounds like they're trying to get rid of staff without paying them out.
Exactly. So they're going to be like, hey, do you want to leave? Type of thing. Oh, you want to leave? Okay, cool. Let's end the contract. That type of thing. I think that's what they're trying to do. But it's just a proposal. They say, this stage, it is just a proposal. No decision will be final until a collective agreement is reached between employee representatives and French authorities, blah, 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 blah. So we'll see how that goes. But going back to what you brought up, Bethesda, Maxwell, remind me to next week to walk you through this article from a former Bethesda employee that came out and was making waves. I think it'll, highlight some things about Elder Scrolls 6. And I know you've given up on that game, but it might, give some insights as to what's happening in Bethesda and why things are taking as long as they can. So I'll try and remember next week to walk you through that article. Because I think you might be interested, and who knows. But yeah, that's it for my Ubisoft stuff. Sorry for the long rambling me. And yeah, that's it for the game. I said gaming corner, Jesus Christ. That's it for the news. Any final thing, Maxwell? No?
Yeah, the only additions I can add to the Ubisoft stuff is that their stocks fell by 30%, which triggered a bit of panic. And also, a Ubisoft developer got given, what do you call it, leave without pay because he went to the media and criticized Ubisoft. And also, with the stuff you're talking about going on in France with them trying to cut out people, there might be a strike from the
Yes, I forgot to
workers.
mention that. Yeah. They said they were planning to walk out on Yves Guillemot, who's like what the CEO. I forgot to mention that. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, so it's just a shit show. And just to add on what I previously said, I think the problem with these big companies is they grew too big too fast, and on top of, because I think of specifically Square, like there was a video I watched talking about the rise of Square on how successful Final Fantasy was and how they expanded the team, the development team in Square and all of that stuff, where it's just like you've got people like Bethesda who only employ about 400 people, where it's like they are the smallest, biggest company. And then you've got all these other companies employing like 1,000 people or so and stuff like that, where it's just like, why are you employing 1,000 people? Again, what's your killer franchise? What's the franchise you always fall back on that releases regularly? Like Bethesda, I mean, why do I keep saying Bethesda? Square, Ubisoft, and Sony, and all of these other things, Microsoft, have big franchises, but they don't have franchises that they release at a regular interval that they are aware of. I mean, that they can comfortably rely on. I'll say, oh, we didn't do so well this year, but you know, Final Fantasy is coming out next year, so we know we can bank on that. Or, okay, we've got 2 more years between the next Final Fantasy. Let's see what we can do in the meantime. Nothing like that. Hell, Capcom Capcom have Resident Evil. They're bringing back Onimusha. Devil May Cry, they don't really need it as much. But we also forget they've got Monster Hunter, which has been doing incredibly well for them. Mm-hmm. And then, who's Street Fighter? Isn't that Capcom?
Of course.
Yeah, so Capcom has so many things, and with Capcom, they are reliably tuning them out. So I think Capcom's struggle years was when you didn't know, hey, when's the next Capcom game coming out? What's it going to be? But now it's more stabilized. Where it's just like a lot of these other big companies who were big back in the years should look upon Capcom and be like, you know, we need a bit of stability ourselves. What's our games of we're churning this out? This comes out maximum every 3 years. Ideally every 1 year, but maximum every 3 years. What are our games for that? Who are the studios responsible for that? What's our smaller games where we can decrease the budget, but we also know they reliably come out as well? And then we can start thinking about other IPs or bigger killer games where they need more time to cook, that these other games are allowing those games to cook for longer or are allowing us to be more creative. I honestly don't think it's that hard to run a company, but hey, what do I know? Sometimes I get this way about running a football club as well, where I see what the fuck Chelsea is doing and I'm like, fuck these owners. But that's a whole other story.
Right. All right. Thanks for the additions. I missed some of those to say. Okay, let's move on, if there's no more new stuff, to the gaming corner. Releases. So, first release, January 26, 2026, was High Guard. PC, PS5, Xbox Series, currently sitting at a 67 on Metacritic. Next, we have Earth Must Die, PC, adventure game, January 27th, 2026, currently sitting at an 80 on Metacritic. Next, we have a game called I Hate This Place, saying released on PC, PS5, Xbox Series, Nintendo Switch, survival horror game, January 29th, currently sitting at a 65 on Metacritic. Next, we have a game called Karen, PC, PS5, adventure survival game, 29th of January 2026, currently an 84 on Metacritic. And then we have Code Vein 2, PC, PS5, Xbox Series, action RPG game, released on January 30th, 2026, currently sitting at a surprising 71. I thought it would be a little bit higher. But yeah. I had some gaming corner stuff to go over, but I want Tommy to be here before I do that. So, yeah, that's it for the gaming corner and the release of the week. Anything from you, Maxwell?
Just that you really just glossed over High God, considering how big of a deal it was supposed to be in terms of hype, and then it did not live to the hype.
That's what I wanted to talk about when Tommy was here.
Okay. All right. No, that's it. Because High God went over my head. And then as I was online researching whatnot, I keep seeing everywhere just talking about High God. And I'm like, I wasn't even aware of this thing. And then I see it was on the Game Awards. I'm like, I don't even remember this thing. And then I see Keely is back in it. And I'm like,
yeah.
You weren't there. Oh, this was the thing which was towards the end.
Not towards the end. It was the end.
The one that took up the spot of the big announcement.
Yes, it was his one last thing, which is why I wanted Tommy to be here so I could go over everything. But let's not.
Yeah, no, we don't need to touch upon it. I just find it funny because I just saw that Keely is sticking to his guns and saying that it will get better, and I'm just like, yeah, sure, buddy.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it next week, hopefully. Because I was ready to talk about it now, but I want Tommy to be here. I want everybody to be here. But yeah, so no other gaming corner stuff?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to the halfway point. If you're still with us and with the flow of the podcast, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. Okay. Let's move on to the content creator side. Again, there's something I really Tommy wanted to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about it in his absence. It's some pretty disturbing stuff, and I feel like I need Tommy here to speak about it. I feel like I'll be sort of like slighting him, not slighting him, but I'll be undercutting him if I do it without him being here, if that makes sense. So let's focus on something else. So there has been a bit of a feud, and by feud I mean it's like a playful feud between a streamer called Forsen and a streamer called XQC, and the feud is over Minecraft. Now, both of them have been going back to back over beating each other's Minecraft speedrun record, and they're going band for band with each other. They've been going band for a long time, since 2020. They've been going back and forth, beating each other's records. So it's started October 2020. Forsen started, then January 28, 2021.
Hold on. His name is what?
Forsen. Forsen.
Okay. I was hearing like a silent K.
Yeah, people often make that joke. People often call him foreskin and that type of thing, because it sounds like that. But yeah,
it does.
So it does. So Forsen again sets a record, 27 minutes. So the first record he set was 47 minutes. Then he broke it again with 27 minutes. And then XQC responded in February 24, 2021 with 25 minutes. Then Forsen responded again with 20 minutes on April 2nd, 2021. Then XQC beats him January 2023. Took a long time, but he did it with 20 minutes 5 seconds. And then Forsen did it again in March 22nd, 2023 with 18 minutes. Then XQC beats him in May 2023 with 16 minutes 38 seconds. And then Forsen beat him again October 20th, 2023 with 15 minutes. And just recently, almost 3 years later, XQC beats him January 27th, 2026 with 14 minutes and 27 seconds. Now, it's obviously there's a huge gap between these years, but it goes without saying that Minecraft is not the only game they play. They play other games. It's like they've been playing Minecraft, That's why, because people are going to be like, oh, why did it take so long for them to beat each other's records? Minecraft is not the only game they play. They take a break from Minecraft, they play a bunch of other games, and then they see that someone has broken their record, and then they jump onto Minecraft again. Anyway, so SQC posted on Twitter that, hey, Forsen, I beat your record again. And then Forsen was like, took you long enough. Don't worry, I'll get it back, type of thing. So yeah, it's a nice playful back and forth type of thing. It was, do you know the website Polymarket?
Never heard of it.
Yeah, basically it's a parlay website, I think, where you can bet on different things. So you can bet on things like the elections and things like that. So there are even bets on if XQC will beat Forsen's record by a certain date.
If I knew you could bet on the election, I would have been doing this long ago.
Yeah, you can. I think I could be wrong, but I think people were betting on the American election last year on Polymarket. Even on Polymarket somewhere else, but I think there were some bets. Yeah. So yeah, that's it for my content creator side. You, Maxwell?
Nothing significant to share.
Gotcha. Okay. And now moving on to esports, I just have one thing. ALGS, Apex Legends Global Series. Championships. The championships were held from the 15th to the 18th of January 2026 in Sapporo, Japan, at the Daiwa House Primus Dome. Big dome. Olympic events were held there at one point. And it was, a stacked tournament. And some favorites, did pretty well in the championship Sunday, but an August team made up of three people, and then a coach called Oblivion. They ended up taking the championship. There's a lot more, obviously, to go into, but I'm not going to bore Maxwell with the details. It's a lot more deeper than that. Like the people who won and the history with the LGS, the history, that kind of thing. Like it's a very dope storyline that unfolded. But anyway, Oblivion came first, and yeah, congratulations to them. Team Falcons, the favorites going in, came second, and then Answer Force 36 came third. So yeah, that was cool. Hopefully one day I get to attend the ALGS LAN. One can only dream. Anyway, yeah, so that's it for my esports news. Maximilian?
Nope. Nada.
Gotcha.
Nothing. Zilch.
Gotcha. Okay, so before we end, any final thoughts?
Nope.
Gotcha. Okay, guys, that brings us to the end of the episode. Yeah?
Said nada.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, yeah. So that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you listened to, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really goes a long way. I have been your host, Kate Kojo. Thank you to Maxwell for being here as always. Waking up early, we appreciate it. And we will see you all in the next episode. Have a good one. Peace out.